Hey everybody, and welcome back to the ZMAM show, as we're now in 2021, hoping for a great year. Starting this off by talking the movie Let Him Go, a 2020 flick, very late 2020. It's right now currently on all streaming services, and this is a solid drama movie. Adam, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk the 5 reasons you should go see this movie. And again, like I said, it's on many different streaming services right now, and I think it might even still be in theaters if you want to go see it there. But as we just get straight into this, I mean, number one, Adam, let's talk performances.
Yeah, if you're talking about Diane Lane and Kevin Costner, I think their performance as Margaret and George Blackledge was somewhere between great and fantastic. It just even as the kind of slower first half of the movie proceeded, I think they really sold the idea of two parents who had lost their son and were kind of struggling to figure out what to do with their marriage as some things happen to their grandson. What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. And on a little side note, we're going to stay pretty fairly spoiler-free on the beginning. There's going to be a few things we mentioned. It's not going to ruin the movie for you. And then on the back half, we're going to definitely talk some of the bigger issues and a couple things that we thought they could have tidied up better with the movie to get it a higher score. But anyways, when it comes to performances, you are absolutely right. Kevin Costner, he seems to be the American cowboy, or at least he does a great job. There's other ones out there like Yellowstone, I hear, and some other great ones. He even actually may be in that, but others in other way. They both play very complicated characters in a way. Even though Kevin Costner doesn't even have very many lines in the beginning of the movie, I love his actions, and his face just tells it all. You don't really need to hear what is on his mind. It's like I can already feel what's on his mind, when he's feeling that tension between himself and his wife, again, after losing their son to a very tragic way, their only son, mind you. And Diane Lane, her trying to cope through this and kind of trying to keep that smile on her face when she can, and using her wits to try and be smart about things, but again, that grief just kind of consuming her.
So their daughter-in-law and son used to live with them before their son died, and they had a kid, Jimmy, like you said, that was their that was Margaret and George's grandchild. And when Jimmy dies, Lorna, their daughter-in-law, and Jimmy stay with them for a while until Lorna gets remarried. And so throughout this process, Margaret, played by Diane Lane, is still in full-blown grandmother mode. She's already kind of mourning the loss of her son anyway, and she's really kind of clinging to her grandson as the thing that she's going to take care of now that her son is gone.
Yeah.
And as the movie progresses, and as Lorna gets married and moves out and takes Jimmy with her, you can tell it's affecting them both. But boy, it hits Margaret pretty hard.
Very hard. And Lorna, unfortunately, is just a very weak woman. Not only has she lost her husband, which was her Brock, no doubt, but you can just tell, we find out that she didn't have a real mother to be there for her, I guess, let alone a father for that matter. And not to mention that Diane Lane, Margaret, doesn't really take her in as one of her true own. She's doing a little belittling, like, oh, you're the water's too hot, and you need to bathe them, and just the little things that really, honestly, piss off daughter-in-laws, because it's like, I got it, this is my baby, I'll figure it out. And so you get her frustrations, but unfortunately, she finds the wrong guy to get in with. And so, again, not to spoil too much more, at least in this first part of it, great performances, absolutely worth checking out just on that merit alone. But as I get into the number 2 piece, it's not your typical, let's be the heroes, let's go in and win the day, and everything's going to turn out perfectly fine, happy endings. It's not. Spoiler maybe, but it's not necessarily a happy ending. It's so... It can go both ways, right? And I'm going to let you take it from there. You could go either way. You could be like, oh, yay, or you could be like, oh, God. It's really everything and mixed in between.
Well, it's like we were talking a little bit before this podcast, and there's a couple of different ways. There are certain things that get left up to the viewer's interpretation. What are George's motivations at the end of the movie? Is he just doing things because he knows Margaret wants him to, or does he have a change in heart and decide to take matters into his own hands?
Sure.
But even still, there are some big moments, some big sacrifices at the end of the movie that the viewers are forced to reconcile with, that are very powerful, because you can see why the character would do it.
Right.
but also at the same time, they are sacrifices, and you're as a viewer, you're kind of left reeling, thinking, "Man, that just
That
happened."
just
So yeah,
happened.
even though they kind of win at the end, it comes at a big
Big
cost.
cost. And so we'll stop there just on that part, just for the moment. We're going to talk some of those big pieces. It's just getting into a few more of the reasons why we love it. But I love that this movie wasn't just your super happy ending and, let's move on to the next or whatever. I love the setting, Adam. The 1950s, let's say it could have been mid to late 50s, as early as maybe 61. Everything from like the little music cues in the beginning of the movie, all the vehicles, the
Right.
old town look. I mean, you really have to give the location people credit for finding these old towns and really making them kind of come to life. Even if some of them were still shot in California, they did a very good job.
Well, and one of the great things about, I feel like the movies that establish setting well are the ones that just do it as part of the telling the story. And like you said, there's never this moment where they're like, "Hey, now you're in this part of Montana. Now they drive by street signs, they
Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
people, you see the style of the vehicles, you hear the music. It's not in your face, it's just there all the time. And that's what makes a good setting. And I agree, like the 1957 was believable and it was everywhere and you didn't need to be
Oh,
told. It was just
you mean
there.
like Wonder Woman 1984,
Oh
84,
yeah, yeah,
84,
yeah.
84?
Yeah, you can watch our video last week about how much of a disaster that setting
I'll
was.
put
But
it.
yeah, this was much
I'll
better.
put a link to I'll put a link in the description and also a tag at the end of the movie if you want this review if you want to see that debacle. But anyways, it was very awesome. Everything from the shop that Lorna, they ended up finding her working in a clothing shop. Everything just looked to tea. It looked the clothing they were kind of messing around with. It wasn't much, but it was subtle and it was there. The diner where they're eating and the references. Anyways, wonderful setting. I like going back to those timepieces because clearly we weren't around in the 50s or the 60s. So it's really neat to kind of see it, and it kind of gives you a little bit more of why the movie's in that slow pace. Like if they were to redo it in this time setting, I feel like it would have been like more like an action thriller movie. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Yeah, maybe.
everything's just so gosh dang sped up in our world these days. Like we just have to like boom, 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 boom. So I was enjoying a little bit more of a slow burn story as long as it was going somewhere. And this one, it definitely was going somewhere. Let's talk number 4, Adam, and the solid villains. And I want you to take this one.
So Lorna marries into this wee boy family. So she marries a Donnie wee boy. And part of what sends Margaret and George, once again, Diane Lane and Kevin Costner, out looking for their son
Oh,
is
grandson, but yeah.
Margaret happens to see Donnie hit his wife and her grandchild in public, and shortly after they end up leaving town to go spend time with family. So they go on this huge kind of venture looking for him, and they finally meet the Weeboy family. And there's this matriarch there by the name of Blanche Weeboy, and she is just like, she is no nonsense,
Yep.
gets exactly what she wants. This is my house, my rules. They go through all this trouble to see their grandson. He comes in the door for 2 minutes and then she sends him off the bed with this kind of, well, what were you expecting? This is my house kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's not even just that. I'll let you go into more. Like as the plot goes on, she gets more, her ruthlessness is revealed more and more.
It is. She is. I think the fair term for her is sadistic,
Yes.
and maybe not so much as a sadistic killer that's out there, but she absolutely has the tendencies and could go full blown at any moment. And clearly, they take steps during this movie, and you will see those parts later on. And like I said, it's worth holding on to this movie and seeing what ends up going down. The tension that these characters bring in. Now, when we say solid villains, I don't mean all of them. Like we had Uncle Bill. Adam, we agreed that he was again sadistic in some ways too. It's just the family in general. It's how they were raised, and clearly, like you said, from Blanche leading this train, she is instilling these values into her boys, and it's no bueno. And it
Yeah.
isn't so interesting too about how you have Blanche's style. Blanche and Margaret are actually almost the exact same, but yet exact opposite. Do you know what I mean? They both know what they want. They're willing to do almost whatever they have to do to get what they want. It's just that they're two different type of people, right?
Agreed.
Margaret would not have taken the steps. I don't think, but that could be argued too. And I stopped myself there for a second. Think about what she loaded in the car, Adam, underneath Kevin Costner's seat, right? So I mean, is she so much different than Blanche? I wonder.
Uh, I think I think that there are subtle differences, and it's amazing. It's amazing how much difference a subtle difference can make over the test of time. I agree. I
Yeah.
think they are both strong female, almost matriarchs. I think Blanche much more so than Margaret, because even though I
Yeah.
think Margaret is definitely the one that calls the shots, I think George has more of a call than any of the boys do.
Right.
But I think the things that make them different is I don't think Margaret rules with an iron fist. She
Right.
knows what she wants.
Yeah.
She's willing to get it. She's willing to make other people go along with her. But she still, at the end of the day, seems to respect what other people want and believe, even if she's still going to go for what she wants. And I think that's what differentiates her from Blanche, who is very much my way or the highway.
Absolutely. And I felt bad for George in this movie because I don't feel like he was just a roll over and do whatever your wife tells you to do. I mean, he respected her wishes and what she wanted, but he had no problem speaking up and trying to literally beat into her verbally like, you need to think before you're acting here. And he was honestly,
Yeah.
he was the, I want to call it it's not necessarily the moral compass, but he was the compass kind of guiding this ship a little bit. Because she just had this thought, like,
Yeah.
we're going to go down and get him. And he's like, and what? She's just going to willingly hand over her baby boy to you and then smile and be like, have a good time. What I mean, it's easy to understand that Margaret's plan to go down there is so half-baked. And it's kind of like, well, I'll just work it out when I get there. And nothing irritates me more, honestly, when men or women try to do something like that. Because it's like, you can't be serious. I mean, we're going to get into some serious trouble here. And hey, hate to say I told you so, right? From George's perspective, but they get that seriousness. And we'll talk those last pieces. And let's just hit our number 5 as we're talking it right here, right now. It's relatable characters. I mean, we're really talking them right now. I mean, I was able to, and Adam, you chime in here in just a moment. I was able to understand where Margaret's character, Diane Lane, was coming from. I understood Kevin Costner's George. Hell, I even understood Blanche's side, and she's the evil, well, at least we're meant to feel evil character, although I wanted to know more about their family, this or that, whatever. I still understood her motives and what was driving her, and some of her boys for that matter. So, Adam, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll touch on this later too, but this isn't a rock solid 5. Like, this may be one of the areas why we're not going to give it a perfect 10 at the end. Spoiler alert. But I think that there was enough relatability between all the characters. Like, there were things that Blanche asked her sons to do that even her sons were like, should I really be doing this? And then in that respect, you can say, well, okay, I see how you got to be the way you are. You can understand Margaret and George's interactions. Yeah. Even Peter, the
Indian
man
boy
of Indian descent, who's afraid of them. He has reasons for being afraid of them.
Yes.
So, like, there are some characters, they could have done maybe a little bit of a better job with some of the wee boys, but there were also a lot of characters, even the weak ones like Lorna, whose background was explained well enough that you're like, okay,
Yep.
I know how you got here. And I appreciated that.
I did too. So they win on all those pieces. So when we talk this film, and I think it's fair enough to give our solid score after talking these pieces before we get into the spoilers. Well, this movie, when you take it and you say, like, this movie was a 10 and take it to where it is. So right now it holds a 6.8 on IMDb. And honestly, I would give this movie about a 7. I mean, I might take it up maybe a half notch, but I think a 7 is a solid. And that's a great score for a movie. Adam, where did you kind of fall in on this one?
Exactly the same. I know I tend to rate a little bit more lenient than you, but at the same time, I'm with you on this one. A 7 feels about right. It's not a perfect movie, but it's the moments that shine really shine, and unlike Wonder Woman 1984, the bad moments don't drag it down.
Right.
They don't add to it. They prevent it from being a 10,
right,
but they're not so bad that it ruins the movie. So yeah, a solid 7 feels about right.
Fully agree. These moments that we're going to speak to now, these are spoilers. So if you want to go watch this movie, thanks for coming out again. Make sure to like and subscribe before you do. Peace out. But we are going to talk a few of the main events that went down in this. So let's just get straight into it, Adam. So we get down to it. We get a chance to meet this wee boy family, and I'll tell you, that conversation they had at the dinner table, I was on pins and needles. I was just like, I'm not even there, and I feel for these. I'm like, and I'm so glad. As soon as George stood up and he was standing, I'm like, thank God he is standing up, because there's no worse position than being surrounded by a bunch of guys and you're sitting down. You know,
Yeah.
I really appreciated how they filmed that scene, and he was standing there, and he was being very frank and to the point, and I appreciate that about George's character. I mean, he was a lawman. We forgot to mention, and and he did have a weapon, but he didn't have it in there, not at the dinner table, which may be respectful. And again, him as a previous lawman, you know, he probably understands that. But damn, the tension scenes were legit.
I mean, the tension in that scene. The funny thing is, at that point, like, you're not super sure about Blanche. I mean, she seems off the whole time. I mean, you know there's something going on, but
She's
you
evil.
just don't really know the full extent of it yet.
Yeah.
So you're little worried about her. Bill, the uncle, is just creepy.
Creeper.
He's just downright creepy.
Creeper.
And so they're sitting in this ranch in the middle of nowhere that no one can get to, with these two people, and basically their goony sons slash nephews, depending on which character you're talking about.
True.
And you're like, what's gonna happen to these two? And you're finally relieved when Lorna comes in, where they get to see their grandkid for like 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden, you're right, George is like, we need to get out of here, and he's absolutely right.
Did you see that look? And I know you did, because they spent enough time on screen showing it, and it was very subtle because he didn't want to like say it out loud, but he was just doing it. He was just like, just the very tiniest tilt of his head with his eyes going down, put him down. We'll figure this out later. It's time to go. Right. And I was just like, I'm like, please, Margaret, put him down. You have to let them go. This is not going to end well. And it didn't. Even as so much as when they get outside, and the creepiness continues, because they're like, the boys came in like, yeah, we tried to get in your car and it was locked. And I'm just like, what the hell do you mean you tried to get in our car? And you know, and then when they finally get outside of the house, and I'm like, okay, they might actually get out of this unscathed for now. And Bill follows him out, and he's still making a few more weird comments and being weird. And then Kevin Costner, I loved it. George Strait, he goes, why are you still out here? And Bill kind of goes, I don't know. And then he just kind of turns around and walks off. And I like I said, I like George's character, because I feel like he's rough and tough enough, but I'm like, but again, he's older. He's an older man. He knows this. And that finally plays into a huge part. Let's get into the next big tense scene, because it might as well. It's good times, where basically Lorna, unfortunately, spills the beans that both Margaret and George are trying to get them out of this town and to come back home with them. And they go to their hotel room, which obviously they knew where they were staying. Small town. I mean, the police are clearly, involved with this family, meaning on their payroll probably. And yeah, they go in and they do a number on these guys.
Yeah, I mean, like, from everywhere, they break into the hotel room. They're expecting Lorna and their grandchild to show up, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And it ends up being Blanche and all the wee boys instead. And Blanche is just like accusing them. Blanche is just accusing them of like trying to run off with their grandson, and like, tempting Lorna into running away when it's against her will. And it's just one of those things where she's already painting them as the bad guys, and then and then I'll let you go into it further than that. It gets crazy.
It does get crazy, and if you've gone this far, then you've probably seen it. But again, the tension is like, you cut the tension with a knife, I think they call the term, whatever. I mean, it's just amazingly, and Diane Lane is she's trying to hold on to her composure and try to explain herself, which is interesting enough too, Adam. And let's mention this. I mean, technically, what they're doing is they're trying to kidnap their grandson, so it can easily be argued that, I mean, are really George and Margaret's intentions, are those lawful? And I mean, when you see this family and kind of how sadistic they are or could be to this boy growing up, you should think that automatically, like, well, he'll get a better life and it'll be this and that. But I'm like, but you're also just blatantly taking a child from his rightful family, and it's there in your face, and you have to decide where you sit on that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something that would eventually come down to a court battle. But this might go state to state, but I would wonder how many. I mean, because technically what they did is they talked the child's mother into leaving with them.
Right.
So it would have been the mother's choice had the wee boys not interfered somehow. And I want to know what court. I'm sure they exist in the shadiest parts of the country.
Right.
I want to know what court tells the mother who's getting beat by her husband that no, you can't escape with your child and go live with your your former mother and father-in-law.
Well,
I'm sure they exist, but whew, I imagine 80% or more court battles like that the women win.
you would hope so. You would hope so. But
Yeah, I hope
I would
so.
really wonder because the sheriff, we found out that he was pretty much in with them after poor George, spoiler, gets his damn four fingers chopped right off, and by Donnie, mind you.
Yep.
And then the sheriff comes in and he's basically giving his advice. And I love George. He's just like, save your crap, just get out of here. I
Yep.
understand how the law works in this town. You
Yep.
basically, you piece of what. And
Yep.
and I was feeling it too. I'm like, you corrupt piece of crap. I can't stand corrupt people, and it's awful. But anyways, they're all around us every day. But George, and I mean, he really sees now what they're up against, and he shares these feelings with Margaret. He's just like, I think he's basically trying. We can't win this. This
Yeah.
is not going to end well. And she breaks down another way, basically in so many words, just saying, he's all I have left. He's all I have
Yeah.
left of James and us and whatever, and we can't let him grow up in this kind of family. And I don't disagree. I don't disagree. And like you mentioned earlier in our talks, Adam, you said it perfectly. And maybe I should let you say it. You say it. You said it about the grandfathers and what they would do.
Yeah. Yeah. So you create a situation where you're a grandfather and you've got one grandkid left, no kids left. They're all dead. And your grandkid's going to live a shitty life, and you are offered a trade. You say, I will give that grandkid a good life, but I want yours. I bet you most grandfathers say, take it.
Yeah.
Take my life. So I think at some point George realizes I got to do something.
Yeah.
Whether it's for Margaret to make her feel better, whether it's his love for his grandson when he finally starts realizing the situation
Yes.
he's in, and he needs to, whatever the motivation is, he finally decides he's had enough. He knows he's not going to get help from somewhere else.
Mm-mm.
So late at night, he doesn't even tell Margaret he's leaving. He grabs a shotgun. He goes over to the wee boy house, and he decides he's going to take matters into his own
He
hands.
does. And just moving on, because I know we're kind of getting already on the 25-minute range or so with this. He gives the ultimate sacrifice. He ends up, he gets shot twice. I think both by Blanche, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And mind you, a lot of the wee boys went too. Well, hell, technically the whole family goes. I mean, at least I was there. So Donnie gets knocked out upstairs by George, right? So he was inside the house when it started on fire. Bill gets shot in the face by Blanche accidentally because they're dumbass. Obviously, clearly not great at shooting. And then you get one of the brothers who gets shot on the way up the stairs as they're trying to rush George as he's struggling with the mom Blanche. And then there's the third brother, as I call him, who just completely disappears off screen, which is why I dock this movie a little bit, because I'm like, if you're going to make somebody disappear, then I need a reason for it. Because in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, when is this guy going to show up and try to pull one last move or because movies do that. They do it all the time. And, if you're just going to say that, well, he probably just went to the fire and maybe he got, smoke induced and whatever and died. Okay, well then, I mean, why even kill him off screen? Why don't just kill him right there when he was bum rushing up the stairs? I mean, and make it a little bit more intense. Like, literally, all three of those people disappear, and the next time you see George, it's with Blanche coming out and shooting him right as Margaret's coming inside, to try and get George pretty much after he's already basically been majorly wounded. And anyways, it was just kind of a distraction. It doesn't break the movie. It don't have to have it. It's just little things, little details, and which makes a movie go from a 10 to a 7 eventually. And again, another little thing I mentioned to you, Adam, not that we have to get into it, a huge point was I just wish I would have had some more background on the wee boy family. Again, do we have to have it? No, but I think it would have been a nice extra piece. But we talked about timing with the film. It was almost out of 2 hours for this movie. So you got to imagine, do people really want another 20 or 30 minutes of background and also other side plot stories? Because, let's say they're bootleggers, or let's say they're land barons or something, and basically they'll push you off your land or kick you out of the city if you don't go their way. Do we really need to see that for this movie? And I'm sure the writer and the director was probably like, no, we don't need to see this.
Yeah, and I think that they chose to spend a lot of time really capturing the setting, and really focusing on how the relationship between Margaret and George was changing, and for better or worse, because it felt really slow to me. This movie took me a long time to get into, so I'm not saying it was perfect,
right.
But I mean, we gave it the same rating, but at the same time, Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think if the answer is you stick with the movie in its current form, or you add more time in there to go to describe the villains a little more,
Yeah.
I think you stick with the movie. But that being said, well-developed villains are more interesting villains. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Sure, but again, nothing to totally knock this one off the realm because we want you to go see this movie. It's for sure. Make sure to leave comments if you did like it or not, and let us know what you thought about that ending. Because I got to tell you, Adam, I had to replay it a few different times watching Diane Lane's face as she's driving off with Lorna, and she's kind of the sun kind of starts peering in from the back, and it's hitting the rearview mirror, which is shining on her face, and it's almost kind of like half-ass uplifting, kind of like the beginning of a new day, beginning of the new journey that we're going to start with Jimmy and Lorna and our life. But I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but how about every morning you wake up and as you're making breakfast for Lorna and Jimmy, and then you look over to that fourth seat and you notice that George isn't there? I mean,
Yeah,
holy
I
shit!
well, and you can see the sadness. Like Diane Lane does an excellent job of showing the sadness in Margaret's eyes there at the
Yes,
end.
she
I think
does.
to me, what that is it's the motherly instincts led her to the right spot, but boy, was she unprepared to pay that price.
Absolutely. That speaks it right there. That's exactly how I felt. And I was watching her face because although she had like this almost partial, I mean, think you, Adam, you've done some acting. It's hard to get those facial expressions right. And it was just enough to where it's like, is she smiling? But then she kind of takes a breath and you can tell the tears are kind of coming back again. I mean, I guess it's just a rush of emotion for her. Yes, I have my
Yep,
grandson. Oh my God, I just lost my husband. And oh my God, what are we going to
right.
do moving forward, really, in a way. And
Yeah.
let's just say it's not a happy ending in my eyes, to be honest. I think it was just some huge losses. I mean, yes, was this family sadistic and did they deserve to go? Probably, except we didn't see enough of other stuff
Yeah.
that they've done. But if they're willing to chop off a man's fingers, I'm sure they've done other super shady stuff along the way. So,
Yeah.
corruption, you make your choice. What is it? What should be dealt with it? But no doubt that family was killed. Their whole house burned down. Blanche dead. All the sons dead, as far as we know. Maybe there's a sequel. Maybe that's why the third brother wasn't shown. Adam, hey, I mean this is the time of sequels, right? I'm ki- I'm
Yeah, I mean,
kidding.
I liked the movie, but yeah, let's not do a
Yeah, I
sequel.
am fully kidding. If they did a sequel, I'd be like, "What are you doing? Do not do
Right.
that." But
Right.
no, stellar performances, wonderful movie overall, and so sevens from both Ab and I. So we hope you get a chance to go out there and see that, and make sure to come back out. I think Adam, one of the next ones we might do is let's get a little bit more. Let's get a little bit more hands on. Let's get maybe the movie Greyhound 2020 with Tom Hanks. We've talked about it. Yeah, we've
Check
talked
it out.
about it before. So we're going to try and bring that to you maybe next week if possible. Come out and see. I got a new style video that I've just kind of been doing on the side. Everything you probably don't know about and said movie title. So I did Dawn of the Dead 2004 because I love zombies. 28 Days Later is going to be the next one. And then I'm going to start branching out to all kinds of movies, action films, maybe even dramas or whatever. Just trivia. It's just good time fun, and you get to learn some stuff. So make sure to come out and check it out. Like and subscribe as always, so we can get these videos kind of rolling and build this channel up some more. And I guess Adam and I will see you guys at the next review.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.